This is probably the oldest power tool I have. I've had this since like 1980, and it still runs. It's amazing. And I still use it a lot. Now, what I do with this is not recommended. Another one of those things, don't try at home. The sandpaper on here is not much more than notebook paper. It's really old and really worn down so that I don't make a mess of what I'm going to do. And it just speeds everything up and gets it nice and straight is why I do it this way. I need to trim these nice and flat and put a little bevel on them. And this is the quickest, most accurate way I know how to do it. I'll still touch it up after this, but you know, let her rip. Much better and quicker and straight. Don't try this at home. All right, now I'm going to finish it out with a little file that's built for this situation, which will, it has a flat edge on it so you don't scar up the fretboard, but it's mainly to take that sharp edge off of those frets. I do have my own beveling file, which I'll go over it a little bit just to make sure I got everything. And that's all good. Another one of those where you want to make sure you don't go zip across. It's been known to happen. So just work on the ends. This neck is fretted. Next step will be to put a little bit of finish on it. I always like to put the frets on before I glue the neck in because it's a whole lot easier and you get a nicer job done when you have the neck out. It's just a better way to do things. I'll finish part of this, leave the glued area raw so that, you know, I'm not interfering with that. And then the next stage with the frets is after the finish has been on and dealt with, then I'll buff them on the buffer, then glue it in. Then it's, you know, onward and almost having a guitar. But the neck, by far, is the most important part of any guitar for many reasons, and you can see how much more labor-intensive it is to build one of these things. The rest of the guitar is made of, you know, electric guitars might as well have been a cutting board with some holes drilled in it. This part, there's nothing quite like making a neck. It's like really advanced furniture making. And it's satisfying when it's done. And then somebody gets to use it and make music with it. Woohoo! Okay, onward to the next stage. The finishes that I do most everything with are oil, Danish oil finish. I don't spray lacquer. If I'm going to put color on something, it's going to be an acrylic lacquer. It's not the same as the nitrocellulose stuff that will kill you if you use it, and it's just dumb to use it. The best finishes are oil finishes, especially on the neck, because it feels good and it's really simple to do, and it's easy to repair. It's just wonderful stuff. And basically all it is kind of 50-50% polyurethane, oil-based polyurethane, and linseed oil, boiled linseed oil with some other stuff that they put in there. But it works great. A lot of people swear by True oil. It's the same stuff. It's linseed oil based stuff. And tung oil, same, except you're using a tung oil instead of a linseed oil. There's no real advantage to it. Some say it's harder, some say it shines up more. I don't know. I dull it down anyway. I don't like it shiny. So I love this stuff because I can go buy it at my local store. And usually it takes like 3 or 4 coats of this. The first coat, which I'm putting on here right now, will soak in pretty quickly. It doesn't soak in like a sponge, all right? It's going in very microscopically in the surface. So in other words, it's not going in very far. It just becomes because the polyurethane in there, if you don't have polyurethane in there, it'll never really get hard. It'll, like when it gets really humid out, it'll get gummy again. So the polyurethane makes it hard, and in the end, after 3 or 4 coats of this, it makes a nice hard surface. And if you have to repair it, you just put more on it, and you know, it just kind of blends in. So I don't want to do this part where the glue is. I'll just get up close to it. And then after I glue it in, I'll just finish it out. It'll all blend together. And you can see what's nice about oil is it brings out any figure that's in the wood. I mean, it just all of a sudden just pops and everybody goes ooh and ah. And they're so impressed by the wood that I found at a store. Now you kind of got to get it into the gaps, into the you know, work it into the frets a little bit, and then you got to make sure you clean it after it's in there. But the first coat usually soaks up into there pretty good, so you don't have to do too much cleanup on it. After about the second or third coat, then you have to get in there with your fingernail and really make sure that the frets are cleaned out. So there's the first coat. Just wipe it off with a clean paper towel. Make sure you get under the fret edge Otherwise that'll build up a little bit and you won't like it. Fingernail works great. Right. Let it hang it up, let it dry overnight, until it doesn't feel sticky. Put another coat on, do that like 3 days in a row, and you'll have a nice finish built up. Now, be careful with the rags. Don't throw them in the trash. It's a serious, don't throw them in the trash. Just leave them out, let them dry. These will combust spontaneously if you pile them up on top of each other. They build up heat and they'll start fire. So just leave them out to dry. And then when they're dry and hard, then you can throw them away. The oil finish is on now after, I think I put 4 coats on here. And like I said, oil finish is not, it doesn't soak in like a sponge. It goes into the surface a little bit, but depending on the wood, how porous the wood is. But something like maple, it doesn't go in very deep at all. And what it does is it builds up after the wipe on, wipe off a few times to a surface finish. So oil finish is actually a surface finish. Now, you can feel it, you can see it's a little glossy, and you can also feel it's kind of lumpy, and not perfect. It's really hard to get a perfect wipe on, wipe off finish. There's ways like wet sanding and such while you're doing it that might help, but I tend to I don't want it glossy anyway. If you want to get a glossy oil finish, it's hard work. And don't ask me, I don't know, I don't care. I prefer a matte finish. And in order to do that, you just get like number 4X, 4O, the finest steel wool possible, and just go over it. And you can feel it smoothing out that lumpiness right away, and it takes the shine off, gives it a nice matte finish. Doesn't take all that long to do depending on how thick it is. And like I said, I usually do 3 or 4 coats. That's enough. And just dull it down, basically. Now on the fretboard, it's a little bit more difficult because you got the frets in the way. It's okay to, polish the frets with the steel wool, but the main issue is like right up against the edge of the fret, you can feel some buildup. So you got to get in there with your fingernail and work that out. Okay, so that polishes up the frets pretty nice alone. I mean, remember, I don't have to recrown anything because I put the frets in perfect to begin with, so I don't need to do any leveling or any recrowning. So that's the factory crown on there, which is always perfect. And you could leave it there, but there's one more step you have to do with any fret job, and that's to go and buff it out, which really, more than anything, works the edges there, that feeling of a little bit of roughness there. Buffing helps smooth everything out. So there's one more thing to do, and then this neck is done. There's a couple different ways that I buff frets out. One of the ways is using a little buffing wheel on a Dremel, and this will work. Specifically, I use it if the neck is glued in and the frets are put on after the neck has been glued in. So like a repair, or if you got a Les Paul, something like that with a glued in neck, and then the frets are put on, then all of it afterwards, you're dealing with the whole body there. It's hard to take it to a buffer and do the whole thing, so I would do it this way using one of these things, a Dremel and a little tiny buffing wheel. And these things wear out pretty quickly. And then have a little bit of a polishing compound. Right, just get a little bit on there. But first I got to tape off the edge is a good thing to do, because you're going to run the Dremel kind of over the edge, and this protects the finish and keeps it from burning the finish and leaving a smear on the edge. Right, so basically what I do, and when I do this, I usually start from the bottom up. I don't know why. I fret from the top down, but I do buff from, I don't know why. But with a couple pieces of tape, this is the way I do it. I know a lot of people would do this. They would tape the whole thing, but for this, I prefer not to do that. I'll just, with a piece of tape, and I need to have a little piece of 800 grit, wet, dry sandpaper that just very quickly give it the once over, get a little bit of this compound on there, and swipe it across the whole thing, and mainly go for the edge, the ends, to smooth them out. Does a great job of doing that. Then move up, doing them one at a time. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do this every time, but just make sure you got some on there. One at a time, and I reuse a piece of tape until it doesn't stick anymore, which is maybe every 5 or 6 frets. You can turn it around, get more use out of it. And so on. But this is slow and boring, and I got better things to do and would rather be more interesting things to do. So the other way I would do this is put it on take it to the big buffing wheel and do the whole neck all at once. But I have to tape out the whole neck also. So you'll notice I have 4 different thicknesses of tape. Just makes it easier. Start with the 1 inch, and then to the 3/4, then the 1/2, and then the 1/4 inch. Just speeds things up. Okay, so there it is. It's all taped up. You put the tape on there basically to protect the finish, right? Because the buffing wheel is going to go all over the place, and you don't want to mess up the finish. Just going to buff on the frets themselves. And this is to take out any big lumps or clumps or, you know, scratches that are bigger than what a polish will take out. Okay, there you have it. Neck is finally done. This polish feels good on those edges. It's nice. Finally, neck done.